All right, we have more than a couple questions here from Velastic. We put these in the chat, and Velastic, I'll let you speak. Good morning, everyone. Let's see here. Here's our questions. First here. And we have some from, all right, so how to copy cell from an advanced data grid into a clipboard without marking it and manually copying the data. Ideally would like a default action upon cell selection, but additional calculated column or icon will work. This is like row specific that you're asking about?
Sorry, could you repeat the question?
Your first question is how to copy cell data from an advanced data grid into a clipboard without marking it and to manually copy the data. Isn't this your question?
Yeah, it is my question. Yeah, and basically, I just couldn't think. I'm quite new with the decisions or within the decision, so I'm not quite sure yet if there is some easy way to do it. And I just found out that there is this lunch and learn. There are these sessions. So yeah, just wanted to ask, like, yeah, if within the advanced data grid, like when you, let's say, select the cell, is there a way how to copy the data? Without like pressing Control C or right clicking and copying the data, just some automated action. And I'm basically asking because I want to publish some like URLs for the paths, and for the URLs it's quite okay that you can open up the URL, but for instance for the UNC paths, yeah, I just want to just copy the data into the clipboard and then let user, let's say, or someone who is using the workflow to paste it somewhere and then just use it that way. And it's kind of annoying to mark the data within the cell, or when there is a link you can click on it, but let's say to mark it and copy it, it's not it's a little bit of a hassle, let's say. So yeah, I was just wondering if there is a way without using like a JavaScript or anything.
I don't think so. Like if you because you have a cell, like you have like a file path in a cell, and you want that to just be very easily like one click copied so that they can take that file path somewhere else.
Yes. I mean to clipboard basically. So we can do whatever you need to do with it. Like I don't know, like for instance, like you have the pages like Azure, for instance, you have that little icon that you can copy, let's say, I don't know, some ID or whatever, that kind of stuff, let's say, and whatever, it could be an icon, it could be extra column, like calculated column, or it could be as mentioned, like default action for the cell or row maybe, or whatever. Just
now
I couldn't.
Yeah, I don't think we give you the ability to control this in any way. You could use a JavaScript control for this, but that's probably, I don't know that that's worth the effort.
Yeah, and that's what I was thinking about, but yeah, I was hoping that there is some easier way.
Let's see here. So info only, inline edit. Inline edit lets you click into the cell so that you could get it and then just probably more easily copy, but you could click into the cell, you'd still be doing like Control C once you're in the cell to copy everything.
And that would be okay, but as mentioned, I mean, at the same time, I would like to populate the URL links as well, and then those I would prefer to be opened like directly, ideally. So I was thinking one part would be to maybe to copy the data, and second maybe run a flow which would basically which would contain some rule and basically decide upon the, let's say, the prefix or the data which are included in the cell and perform specific actions. So maybe open the URL if it's an HTTPS or something else if it's a UNC path or whatever.
I think with like an inline edit, you can specify at the column level if it can be editable or not. So theoretically, let's just see. really quickly here. This isn't going to get you exactly what you want. You could use, we do have a thing called a JavaScript control. And it looks like you can do, it does look like that you can do this in JavaScript. So theoretically, you should be able to do this in JavaScript. Output data name. There we go. So let me just see here really quick. Let me just see. Let's get some accounts into this thing really quick. And let's try that again. If we run that, I should see accounts. There's some accounts. And I can click into, so if I could have links in one and then click into another at the column level. But I don't think without using some kind of JS trickery, you're going to be able to copy it to the clipboard here automatically. But let's just, I mean, like here we could have like open, you have like, I guess, some kind of, open URL, possibly open URL field, right? And I'm just going to say, I'm just going to put a fake, not a fake URL. I think the default behavior, the closest you're going to be able to get with the default behavior is probably something like this. Let's see what this looks like. Yeah, so. Oh, well, I didn't completely configure that. Did I? Let's try that again. It's dumb. Display text. Open me. All right, so you could have, yeah, that's fine. Oh, it's a pending. Oh, but you could have links here that you can have clickable and inline editable cells to just make it slightly easier to copy the value out of a cell instead of having to grab it out of the whole the whole row. I think given the default behavior data grids, this is probably as close as you'll be able to get. Though we do have things called, if I look at our documentation site, JavaScript controls. And in a JavaScript control, you can write a completely custom control that can do whatever you can do with JS. So if you do need this to have more, you do want to have like a one-click copy to clipboard action, you're probably looking at building some kind of data grid in a JavaScript control, and then deploying that JS control into decisions. Questions about that particular question?
You can hear me. I don't have a problem with my headset, but yeah, I mean, partially, and yeah, I will explore the JavaScript option. But since you run in your test scenario when you are opening the URL, actually, that it kind of pre-fill the I think it's like a basic part of the installation of decisions when you are opening the link. Which are the same, and for me, for the HTTPS links, it works, but for others, it doesn't. So it kind of pre-fills the default part, I would say, of the instance into the link. Is there a way to get rid of it?
Yeah, that shouldn't do that. I don't know why it is, honestly. Let's see here really quickly. I'm not sure why it's actually doing that. It should not. Oh, let me not lose all my work. I don't know why right now it's actually appending. It's not, it should not be doing this. I'm not sure why it is. Probably some, that's not expected. I'm not entirely certain why it's doing that. What the hell is it doing that?
Yeah, I mean, I ran into the same. So, I mean, yeah, I'm not sure. But it's okay, I guess. I mean, I'll explore the JavaScript option and see if I can find a way to achieve.
Yeah, I'm not sure why it's doing that. That's interesting. That's definitely not expected behavior. So I'd have to, let me confirm why that's happening. I'm not entirely certain. You have another question here. How to use advanced grid within a tab container? You're trying to get a trigger, use an advanced grid as a trigger
Yes,
in TED
I would
fire
like
off
to,
of data flow.
yeah. I would like to trigger an active workflow, form flow, sorry, from the advanced grid, which is part of the, tab container.
So when I'm in an active form flow here, and I look at advanced data grid, and I see selection changed and value changed as options for triggers that I can apply.
Yeah, but your grid is not part of the tab container, so that's that was fine. But
it disappeared. The trigger disappears when you're inside of a tab container.
Yeah, I mean, at least for myself.
Let's see here. That's definitely, that sounds like a defect. So I'm root level now. Active form flow. I see tab container selection and advanced data grid now.
Okay.
We might need support's help to figure out why you're not seeing that on the form here.
Actually, I didn't try that one, like that I would move the data grid from the main form into the tab container, but I just try to add additional advanced data grid into the tab container directly, and that doesn't show.
Okay, so put one in here. I wonder if it's the type too, your grid mode that's mattering for you. I'm gonna leave mine as info only really quick. And let's just see here. Here's folder. There's a name. So if I come back to active form flow and add, I only see one tab container. I only see one advanced data grid. Let me come back and edit this and change this to single select. And then let me look here, add, and I should have two now. So maybe it's probably the behavior, not its location on the form. That's the difference for you.
Oh, okay. So I have to select this mode or not info only mode to be able to get that figure out of it. Okay. Right.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, you bet. Happy to help. All right, and then we've got Jeremy up next. So I'm running a raw SQL step in a flow to query an external DB view. The SQL statement I'm using, I wrote in a query editor. My problem is that in the query editor, I get two results as expected. In the raw SQL step, I only get one result. Why would these two methods of running the exact same query return different results? Is it like you actually get two records back in one way versus one record back the other way?
Correct. I expect to receive two records from the database. In the query editor, I get both. In the raw SQL step, I only get one.
I would trust the raw SQL step more than the query editor, but you're saying you get the right results in the query editor?
Yeah, and in the database, there are two results that I am needing to find. There literally are two that I needed to return. The query editor returns the expected data. This raw SQL step does not return the expected data.
Does a defined query step behave the same? What's the output? What's the output type of your raw SQL step? Is it dynamic data rows?
No, it's the data type of the view that I configured in the integrations. So from the same database that I'm running from the query editor.
So you're mapping the data, you're mapping the output data to the view type?
Yeah.
Wonder if there's some kind of cast issue or something with that. I don't know off the top of my head what could be causing that. So you're like on raw SQL, right? And you have return data true, select type. I'm just going to select account for mine, right? And then you have your SQL command, and you've got an array that comes out, and you get one record. Okay. Are there multiple properties on the record in each type that comes back, or each object of the return type?
Yeah, there's probably a dozen data members of the type.
I have no clue of why that might be happening here for you. You could just try changing it to dynamic data rows, just data rows, and see if the better results come back. That would at least
Okay.
isolate it to some kind of mapping issue between the raw SQL step and the view type. They're not necessarily the same. The query editor and this are not necessarily the same code that's being executed, but I would have trusted this more than the query editor. So that's confusing. That's why I think maybe there's some kind of data type mapping issue, but that's a
Okay.
pure guess on my part right now. I'm not sure, Jeremy. I think we might need support's help here, but I would
Okay.
check with it. Just try with a data row and see if it comes back differently or not.
I will do that.
So yeah, otherwise I think we'll need support to dig in and figure out why those might be behaving differently. I have never personally seen them behave. I've seen raw SQL, and you might also just try define query step too, instead of raw SQL, and see if that behaves any differently. Because if it does, if the define query step behaves better, then you could get around this now.
Yeah, data rows returns the single result.
You could also try building an access pattern against your view instead of using raw SQL instead of using raw SQL entirely. That way you can get like fetches on the properties you care about from the view.
Okay.
Instead of doing that select. Are you familiar with those?
I'm not.
Do I have any views? Let me create a view here, or let me connect to a view on my local really quickly. Yes. Just pick any view. There we go. We have steps by flow date. There you go. Yeah, flow name. I'll just call, yeah, I don't have a key. Do I have something that has a key? How about permissions for fold? No, come on, give me some good. All accounts permissions for folder. Come on. Hey, stored workflow should have something, right? Screw it, I'll just make something up. So just do primary flow tracking ID as the key. Let me do all these, save. I'm just creating a view really quickly, sorry, just have something. All right, what database type are you using? Are y'all using, Jeremy? Vitali's mentioning something about Postgres in the chat.
It's a MySQL database.
Okay. And then here, if I go to the view and I right click and I do manage additional access, it's going to bring you into this new tab here. And from here, I can add an access pattern. And then I can specify, I could name this, fetch by whatever. And let's say I want to fetch by, current step ID. I click save. Now, and fetch by whatever, if I go to a flow underneath my connection, so integration database, local connection, and then I should see my view here, the view I just created. And inside of that, I should see fetch by whatever. In fetch by whatever, I should have current step ID and match type which I can specify how I want the check verb. And then I can map a value in there. You could try this as well if you're just doing like a fetch on some like doing like a simple check, like not like an in list check. I'm not sure how complicated your query is to the view you're using.
It's just a simple, like I'm looking for a related ID. So yeah, it's just a single string.
You could, then I would maybe try this access pattern thing as well. If that doesn't work, then we're going to need support's help to dig in and figure out why you're seeing a different in response.
Okay, I'll try these out and contact support if I can't figure it out.
Okay. Alrighty, thank you, sir. And then we've got Daryl. I have a form where an agent will enter information on the form. I need to pass this information down the flow after the form. This info is not stored in any other data entity. How can I get this information as inputs in the next step of my flow? You need to create inputs on your subflow. So let's just create a new folder here. All right, and so here, let's create a form, and then behind that form, we'll put a subflow. So I'm going to create a form here that doesn't have any, it's going to take data in that doesn't get saved to any kind of data type, and it'll just be, say, 2 text boxes. I'll just do str1, and I'll put another text box here for str2. Now I've got 2 values in my flow, and I'm going to go ahead and create this flow. And then what I want is a form. I'm going to put another form step here. And on this form, I'm going to put a button, and I'm going to put 2 dynamic labels. Text from data, and I'll say str1 value. I'll copy that. I'll do the same thing here, text from data, but I'll just name this str2 value. Ignore that plural. So now the goal for me is to figure out, I can't, if I were to look at like mapping editor here, select from value, I don't have the values of str1, str2 here. And so the reason is because I don't have, there's no inputs on the subflow itself. In fact, if I were to connect these together and look at my subflow, I'm not able to pass anything into this flow because I don't have any inputs defined to it. So I'm going to edit this flow, click my start step, or just come to the top here. You can either go show editor or set up input data. So set up input data, define input data, and I'll put one for str1 and str2. And then I'll map those into my thing. Here's str1, and I'll do select value from flow, str2. And then I'll come here. You can see it auto mapped because the names matched exactly at map for me. I mistyped this one, so I have to map this from my main form. Here's str1. And then I'll come to my form, and I'm just going to ignore my input values because I don't have any inputs for that. So now if I run this and put in hello world and click submit, I should have a form where I see both those values. And so what I've done is taken values from the form, pass them into a subflow to show on a different form, but you can replace that downstream, that second form, with any other operation that you need. Okay. Am I answering the question that you're asking, Daryl?
Yes, that answers the question because I have 3 fields that were getting customer input, and I'm basically trying to create data in the next step for a JSON so we could store the information. And I couldn't figure out how to get those 3 inputs. So the only problem I have is basically to kick off this flow, we ask for like an email from the customer. So my fear is if I put it in the top as a given input, we're going to be asking when the flow runs, it's going to say, give me your email and these 3 pieces of information, but that's not, it's a form like an application. So instead of asking for it up front, it kind of comes in the flow of an application. So I'm wondering, is it better maybe to add those inputs to the data to create section? Like in the next step, because I have a create data step after the form. So maybe
it shouldn't matter. Like a form acts like a create data step. Like there's like, you can, on a create data step, you can define strings and integers and objects, right? on a form, the same thing happens. You'll see I've got two. This is almost like I came on to this create data step and did something like this, right? str1, str2. Ignore those caps, right? And on that create data step, I now have inputs and outputs.
Mm-hmm.
So the form did the same thing. So you don't actually need the create data step to generate the sort of dynamic variables in the flow.
Okay. Yeah. Well, the reason I was doing that is that it's two things. So I'm pulling data from an entity, a data entity that does have preloaded information, but then I also need these three other pieces of information on the form. So it seems like the best thing to do is
I think I lost
add
your
it to
audio.
create the inputs up top and make. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're back now. Yeah, you're back now.
So it seems like the best thing to maybe is to add them as inputs at the top. And that way when the app, so, because just think of it this way, I'll give you our scenario. We have a third-party system in-house. The customer or the agent will start an application there. It launches in decisions. And in decisions, it's going to run this flow, which the first thing pops up is the form or the application. And in that application, we're going to ask for three pieces of information. And I need to capture the three pieces. So I guess if I added as inputs, you're still going to get the three pieces of information, but I feel like
one of the problems though is like if you put the inputs before your form, like let me go ahead and say email address, right? And then let me watch what happens when I try to run this flow.
I think this is the point I was thinking. I was trying to say, yeah, it's going to ask for the email address before you get to the form, right?
Right, because now it's an input.
Yeah, so that's what I'm trying to avoid. I'm trying to get the form, and then as a part of the form, get these three pieces of information, which happens today. I just can't map to that information to pass it down the flow.
Like when it comes out of the form, you don't get an output for email address.
Yeah. So if we use email address as an example, when I try to map to it in my next step, there's no, similar to what you did at str1, str2. There's no data.
And that means that argues that your outcome scenarios are misconfigured here, that they're not either required or optional, that they're not used. And that's why you don't see email address coming downstream. If I set not used here, we should only now have one, and I come look at my select value, I should only get, let me get rid of that. I only have str2 because str1's not coming out that outcome path.
And I think that's the thing. So right now, my three pieces of information, which are revenue, number of employees, and one other thing, there's no outputs on the form for those things. There's you don't see them at all in the outputs.
What kind of controls are they then?
That's a good question. Let me ask. So by control, you mean kind of like on the form?
It's a text box, a number box, a drop down list. Like what is it? How are you getting the data?
Yes. It's two currency boxes and a text box.
And so you're saying that if you click on the text box, what is its requirement? What is its outcome scenario? There should be one of these for every button that you have.
Okay, it does say required. It says submit and it says required.
And there's only one button.
And that's the only outcome scenario there. And then on the currency box, it says outcome scenarios required.
And if you click on the form step and then you scroll down to your outputs, you do not see any of those values on the bottom under the they're not there at all.
They're not there at all.
If you edit your form and you look at the text box or the currency box, what's the data name? Is it using like an object property thing where it says like email or account dot email address?
Yeah, so what it is it's using an object. So we have an object created called provider details that has these three fields in it.
Okay.
But those three fields don't have data in the object because I guess the way it's configured, we want to just get that information on the form, not pull it from an object, if that makes sense.
Well, then provider details comes out the other end of this. So you should be able to select provider details dot email address after the form is submitted.
True. And I can, and it maps to it, but the actual object that has that does not have, like if email address was the example, there's no email address in the object. So it's basically saying it's pulling null every time. It's pulling null because there's no information
so you have
matching that.
On the form, you have a property here that doesn't, it's trying to map to a property that doesn't exist on the object it's passing into.
Correct. So right now,
Any-
like
I see.
provider details as an object has a whole bunch of other information in it. But
Mhm.
these three fields, there's no data in that object that says provider details revenue, it's 300,000. There's
Mhm.
no, it's just said it's not there. So when
Then
you
I
look at
think
the
you need to make sure that that property is on the data type, like edit your provider detail type and then ensure it has a property for each of those.
Okay. Yeah. I think it's the reason we set it that way in our scenario is that it could be different. So it's not static. So, this customer, it's 300,000, next customer is 1 million, next customer is
Sure.
2 million. So setting a static number is what we're trying to avoid.
But this is just a property, like it's not a
Mhm.
value.
Okay.
So if I came in here and entered 1 million, it's going to take 1 million and pass it down in this flow as the value of the revenue property. If you did it at 10 million, it's going to take the value,
Okay.
right?
So where would I do that at again? So say in the object.
You'd have to find your data type. So like if you were to, like, I don't know where it would be, but you could probably use the portal search.
Mhm.
But you've got like, I'll just create not do a flow structure. Let me create like a simple data structure. So here's a database structure called
Mhm.
test type 1A and str1. So if I were in this flow, and then let me see, edit my form here, right? Edit input
Mhm.
data. I'm going to call this, provider details, right?
Mhm.
And this thing, I'm going to search for test type 1A, the thing I just
Mhm.
created. So there's that, right? And so here, like on this, what I've actually could do is pick from details, right? This is probably something similar,
Yes, this is
right?
what we have now today.
Right.
Mhm.
And so what I think you don't have that property. So what you do is if you were to look at this flow, right? If you were to look at Data Explorer, you
Mhm.
can see the type name. So here's provider details. Here's your type name.
Mhm.
That's type 1A. So you could just come try to find that in the portal. There you would find it, right click, edit it, and then to confirm if it has like revenue or those other email address, those other properties on it.
Sure. Okay. All right. I'll try that out. Yeah.
Alrighty,
All right. Thanks. I appreciate it.
you bet.
Mhm.
All right, Vitaly, is there an easy way to add confirmation on a drop-down button control, just like you can do on a regular button? I'm gonna guess not, because the drop-down button is old and underused. So on our form here, if I click my button, I have, where is it? Needs confirmation, right? With the confirmation message. Yes, button text on, oh wow, we've given you some new stuff here, interesting. But if I search for button and I find radio image button, drop down button, and then I come to view behavior. Is it under behavior? Yeah, I don't think we give you the ability to do a confirmation on a drop down list button at all right now, unfortunately. So you'd have to use like a normal validation rule, I guess. You don't get, and that wouldn't give you the dialogue. So no, I don't think you can do this today. Oops. I don't think that you could do this today, unfortunately. Excuse me. All right. Anybody else got any other questions for us today? Okay. All right. We'll go ahead and, excuse me, call it a day. Last call. Make sure I didn't miss anything in the QA section. Okay. All right. Wonderful. All right. Thank you, everybody. Have a great day.